Welcome in to the Punt and Pass podcast. I'm your host, Drew Butler, joined alongside my co-host, Jake Fromm. Be sure to follow us on social media. We are at Punt and Pass on X and Instagram. I'm at Drew Butler. He's at Fromm Jake, puntandpass.com, the number one destination for all things college football. Hope everybody had an awesome Thanksgiving holiday, long weekend, lots of family, lots of food, tons of football. And that is exactly what we are going to be recapping right here on this episode of Punt and Pass. Of course, Georgia takes down Georgia Tech in the second longest college football game of all time, 44-42 in 8 overtimes last Friday night. Some craziness broke out on rivalry week Saturday. We got the conference championship games to look forward to as well. What's going on, Jake Fromm?
Man, absolutely chaotic weekend. Man, Thanksgiving games were awesome. We won ours. Crazy ending to ours.
Woo.
And then crazy ending, it just seemed like every single college football game this weekend. So a lot happening within the 60 minutes, a lot having an overtime, and a lot happening after the games, getting into a lot of scuffles. So just what a weekend, man. Great way to kind of wrap up the college football season. Now we're getting into the postseason. Can't wait to dive into it.
Yeah, you're totally right. I mean, the games were awesome. Thanksgiving NFL games were a blast. Go Lions. Some crazy endings, notably Ohio State losing to Michigan, South Carolina coming back and beating Clemson. And now you're starting to see coaches go into full politicking mode. They are out there stumping. We'll get to what Lane Kiffin is doing on social media right now as well, trying to make a case for Ole Miss. Such a long way to go, Jake. And you know this upcoming weekend is going to be chaotic as well. Hey, if you don't want your holidays to be chaotic, I have a great idea for you. Get on over to Solomon Brothers Jewelers to buy an amazing piece of jewelry or a diamond accessory for the significant other in your life. This episode of Punt and Pass, every Monday episode of Punt and Pass, presented by our awesome partners over at Solomon Brothers Jewelers. You know the drill. If you go in store to one of their 3 amazing locations, Buckhead, Alpharetta, or Sharpsburg, and mention Punt and Pass, you can get up to 20% off your jewelry purchase in store. Check us out on social media as well, and them at Solomon Brothers. We're at Punt and Pass. Jake and I, you know where to find us, because I've been talking with Jaron, and we're doing something special for holiday season. So keep it locked in. Head on over to Solomon Brothers. Again, I'll tell you, the in-store experience is simply unmatched. They have a full bar in there for you to go in there, get yourself a cocktail. They've got TVs in there so you can watch some sports if they're going on. Your significant other will get taken care of perfectly. The staff is incredible. And of course, the selection is simply unmatched. SolomonBrothers.com, at Solomon Brothers on social media. 3 amazing locations. When you go in store, mention Punt and Pass, you can get up to 20% off your jewelry purchase. So shout out to Solomon Brothers. I will keep you locked in on the specials that we have coming up for the holiday season. Jake, let's start with Friday night. Georgia hosted Georgia Tech. Clean old-fashioned hate. Georgia gets off to a horrendous start. Haynes King looks like Derrick Henry, that being Georgia Tech's quarterback, who was toting the rock, and he was simply unstoppable. Dogs go down 17-0. It seemed like all hope was lost. And then the second half happened. Georgia was down 20-6 at one point. They went for a 2-point conversion, which made everybody scratch their heads early on in the game. And then the comeback happened. They go to overtime. 8 overtimes for the second longest college football game in history, Jake Fromm. And somehow, some way, Georgia comes out victorious. They beat the Yellow Jackets 44-42.
Yeah, you're sitting here talking about the game, and I'm trying to think in my head, like, where do I start with this? I mean, let's give a lot of credit to Brent Key, Buster Faulkner, to the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Them boys were ready to play. This was their Super Bowl.
Yeah,
this would have been the absolute stamp to a season, something nobody could take away from them. And man, they left it all out on the field. Haynes King deserves all the flowers. He put his body out on the line over and over and over again. I love the plan, the shifts, the motions, all the eye candy, all the gap schemes. I feel like they exploited everything they needed to, and their guys made plenty of plays. So they did a phenomenal job. Kind of something I saw through the TV, man. I thought Kirby was poised.
Kind of was, yeah.
The entire game. It's just like, I don't know. I felt that comfort level through the TV. I'm like, man, this guy, he's good.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Even when it was 6th and 7th overtime, when he's calling timeouts to kind of help the defense and assess what they were doing on offense, like, hey, man, he was cool, calm, and collected. I feel like we're getting a Kirby 2.0 of kind of reaching that part of his coaching career where, man, I'm going to be nice and poised on the sideline and be hectic when I need to. But kudos to the offense, man. They just never seemed to waver, kept going. It's so much fun watching them operate 2-minute offense. I think Carson does a phenomenal job of taking what they're giving him, ripping a few seams here and there, but also checking the ball down. The cool thing about college is the clock stops momentarily to reset the chains. So hitting those checkdowns in college are huge. He does a great job, master class of how you operate a 2-minute drill. And just kept going and kept fighting. Last thing I do want to say before I give it back to you, Drew, and pass it back to you. Dan Jackson might be one of my favorite DGDs of all time.
Yeah.
Man, I was always a fan of Dan going against him, the scout team. He always seemed to piss me off because he would make a play basically, and he wouldn't do what the card said. He's just a ball player, and just always in the right spot at the right time. Made one heck of a play when they needed him to, man. And that's how you do it, man. Props to Dan Jackson, one of my favorite dudes, and he deserves anything that's being thrown his way.
Yeah, that hit that Dan Jackson put on Haynes King, I mean, he electrocuted his ass. I mean, he stumbled back. The ball came out immediately. Some people on social media were trying to say it was targeting. I didn't really see targeting there. I did think the officiating was pretty suspect. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
You know how I feel, so I don't have to belabor that point. But, on one of the pass interferences that Georgia was called for, or maybe not called for, it seemed like the officials made it back. And then they called it against Georgia. It just seemed, Jake, like it was ticky-tack when they had been letting those guys play for most of the game. And then you could tell the officials kind of got behind the 8 ball and they're like, oh, shit, we're making some mistakes. And then, of course, going into overtime, back and forth. It was wild. It absolutely was wild. Haynes King, 26 of 36 for 303 passing yards and 2 touchdowns, 24 carries for 110 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. I mean, this kid put the entire team on his back. Truly an absolutely incredible performance by him. Wild to think that Georgia Tech did not win this game. They had a 98.4% win probability early on in the fourth quarter. They had a 97.5% win probability late in the overtimes. Tech was up 17-0 at half. Georgia scores 21 fourth quarter points, and they end up winning in 8 overtimes. Here's what I will say. When Georgia initially went for 2 after their first touchdown in the third quarter, I was dumbfounded. Why do you go for 2 there? It was a 10-point game. If you just make the extra point, if you go for 2,
what the analytics say, Coach.
9-point game. So here's what I think happened. The analytics say go for it, but then the analytics say you have to go for it again if you don't get it. Kirby didn't go for it.
Oh, really?
Again. I think that's why it was a bit confusing because, then you just kick the extra point and, it's a tie ball game late when you're sitting there going, wow, we're going into 8 overtimes. This could have all been solved if we just kicked extra points instead of going for 2 and then not going for 2 after the second touchdown. That at least is my interpretation of the analytics.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, I mean, I see it. It's a race to either 24 points where, so they're down 17-0, score a touchdown at 17-6. do you make it 7? Do you make it 8? So it's either a race to 24 points or a race to 20 points. Either way, you need 3 scores.
Yes.
So if you go for it, you don't get it, I'm still down 14.
Right.
And then if I do get it, now that's 2 more scores with 2 more extra points. So it's just kind of a race to the numbers there. I don't mind it at all. A lot of times, the analytics are right. A lot of times they're not. It's a feel thing. It's a gut thing. And he went the call, and I don't mind it. I mean, you could say, well, hey, if Georgia just kicks a field goal, they win that game late in the game. Well, also if Georgia Tech just makes a chip shot field goal, they win that game.
Yeah.
I don't feel bad for Georgia Tech at all in any sense, because there was many opportunities for them to win that game.
Dude, they had keep going. Sorry.
Yeah.
They had 37 minutes time of possession, 563 total yards.
260 on the ground.
Whew.
200. If you rush for 260 yards on the ground, you should win that game 100 times out of 100. So this is something that I kind of want to make a point here, where it's something that's talked about a lot kind of in the NFL, of just teams learning and knowing how to win. And Brent Key in that program, they're like, you could tell they're close, but teams who know how to win those football games. I'm just saying, Georgia is an experienced team. They know how to win. They never wavered, and they kept fighting. So, we'll see what that leap looks like for Georgia Tech in the future, whenever they get into those kind of football games. But it's a culture thing. It's a belief thing. It's a leadership thing.
Yeah.
Ultimately, man, your best guys have to make plays when they're needed. So, but I just thought there's a lot of correlation. I could see it kind of as I was watching it, man, just some teams know how to win and some teams don't.
Yeah. You bring up a phenomenal point. I think that goes to speak on Kirby's calmness throughout the game and kind of throughout the madness that you alluded to when we started the show, Jake. Like, he knows his team knows how to win. He knows his team has been in these types of situations. He understands what kind of talent his team has. Tech is not there yet. Right? They have not been in those situations. I will say, for Georgia's poor starts, they are a very resilient team. I mean, going down 27-13 with 5.5 minutes left in the game, it was looking pretty dire there. And then, of course, the Dominic Lovett touchdown was great. And then Dan Jackson stuns Hayne King, forces the fumble. Georgia then goes back to Lovett. He scores another touchdown. They tied up 27-27 with a minute left. And then, of course, the overtime. Like, Jake, speak to that. 8 overtimes. And then you go to the 2-point conversion versus the 2-point conversion, back and forth and back and forth. Like, the playbook gets truncated immensely. There are only so many plays that you have from the 3-yard line. Credit to the defenses for getting stops when they needed to. Credit to the offenses for scoring when they needed to continue the game going on and on and on. It was wild. I mean, it's going to go down as, if not the greatest game in the history of clean old-fashioned hate.
Yeah,
woo, crazy.
Yeah, so I'll speak to college. In college, I would say generally you have kind of one go-to 2-point play, and then you have a plan B backup in case you burn the first one. So generally, you've practiced 2 to 3 2-point plays throughout the course of the season. Let me tell you, the extra 5, that's part of that low red zone plan that gets thrown in late in the week that guys just kind of flip through and kind of forget about. You're really starting to scramble at that point, and I could kind of see it on Georgia Tech side. Man, they're at the 3-yard line.
How do they not just trust Haynes King? I was shocked.
Exactly. And they didn't do it to the very last one.
I know.
Right? Then, I don't know if it was a read or not read. If he hands the ball off, the guy walks in.
Yes.
Sweep.
That delayed RPO that they were running, freezing those kickers, Georgia couldn't stop it all game.
Oh, and I thought, especially the first couple overtimes, like, they had a light box in there. Like, they're running 3 down linemen, 2 backers, and kind of some overhang players. I mean, that's light. I mean, they've been running on that all day long.
I know.
I couldn't believe it. I'm like, dude, 3 yards? You guys have been running for chunks all night. I don't know why they abandoned it.
Dumbfounding.
So, I don't know there. I thought for them, why not go for 2 in the first overtime?
I know.
And kind of –
or go for 2 yeah, for the first overtime to win the game.
Yeah.
You're right. Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Just hey, let's go win it now. We're not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Let's put the ball in our hands and let's live and die by our own sword. And then Brent Key was wanting to go for 1 in the second overtime, which the rules say you
can't.
You can't, so he's just trying to play conservative, man. At that point,
I know, dude, that was shocking.
It's about the win, and you got to go and you got to put the dagger in and twist it a little bit. So, yeah.
They let Georgia hang around too long. Simple as
exactly, right?
They let them hang around for too long. It's as simple as that. Tech has not been in those situations. They weren't supposed to be there, as you said. Nope. A prohibitive underdog, like plus 700 money line. You bet $100 that Tech was going to win outright. You would have won $700 coming back. A huge 19.5 point. I think it closed 17.5 point underdog. Like they were not supposed to be there. They went toe to toe with Georgia, but of course the Dogs come out with a huge victory. And of course, playing on Friday night was nice if you're a Georgia fan because you woke up Saturday, you just got to sit back, eat and drink and hang out with family and just watch all the craziness unfold. Georgia, of course, in the SEC championship game coming up this weekend, they will take on Texas. Part 2. Texas took care of business against Texas A&M this past weekend. Spencer, I did not send you this video. Jake, did I send it to you? Of Brent Key and Kirby Smart embracing after the game.
I did not see hugged.
That. It looked like they were tip to tip. I mean, they stood there for 40 seconds, and somebody on social media, it was great. He put it to the Titanic theme song, and he said, by my count, Brent Key and Kirby Smart's embrace is actually longer than Rose and Jack's in Titanic, the movie. The music is playing. Look, highly emotional. Kirby is an alumni of Georgia. Brent Key, an alumni of Georgia Tech. Brent Key does not like Georgia. His players played their asses off. They lose in 8 overtimes. I mean, this embrace. It's funny when you watch it. I'll retweet it. So go check it out at Punt and Pass and at Drew Butler. But with the Titanic theme music behind, these guys are just hugging. It was a pretty funny moment after a highly emotional football game. So Brent Key was asked in his press conference, like, is this the most gut-wrenching loss for you as a coach? And he was like, this is the most gut-wrenching loss for me as long as I've ever been involved in the game of football.
Yeah.
So that one's going to stay for a while. There's no doubt about it.
Gosh, the thing that kind of worries me about this game is I think Buster Faulkner put a huge blueprint out there of what to do,
how to attack Georgia,
how to do it. And I don't know what the answers are. I don't know. I don't, because I mean, they were playing low quarters /0 the entire game. They had an extra hat in the box the entire night, and it just didn't seem to matter. So what Texas looks at that and says, hey, that's what we need to do. It'd be tough. Texas has a great offensive line, good run game. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it's going to be highly interesting. SEC championship game. Again, 4 p.m. ABC this Saturday in Atlanta. I just saw College Game Day will be coming back to Atlanta, so they will be at the SEC championship game coming up this weekend. We'll touch on that in just a little bit. Let's kind of recap all the other crazy stuff that happened throughout rivalry week. Ole Miss took care of business against Mississippi State. We'll talk about Lane Kiffin in just a second. But Michigan, the story of the weekend, Jake Fromm, they win their 4th straight against Ohio State, the 2nd-ranked team in the country. Another huge favorite. Ohio State closes a 21-point favorite. Michigan beats them 13-10. Ohio State's kicker missed a couple of field goals. They turned the ball over. This game was in Columbus. And, of course, what dominated the headlines after the game wasn't so much Michigan beating Ohio State for the 4th straight year, but what happened at midfield when the game was over. Michigan players wanted to plant the flag on artificial turf. Jake, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but that does not seem like the best idea.
A little tough.
And, of course, Ohio State's players wanted no part of it. Spencer, I think you got a little bit of clip here to show the people. And then, Jake, we got to give our reaction because this happened all across the country on Saturday. Okay, so if you're watching on YouTube, all out brawl. I mean, a huge fight at midfield. Guys are getting ripped off of one another. Punches are being thrown. People are swinging. Coaches are trying to separate players. And then the police get involved. The Columbus, Ohio Police Department, they put themselves in the middle of the situation. And Jake, inexplicably, I got to say, the guy busts out pepper spray and fires off first at the Ohio State players, and then the other police officer just go ahead and just sprays down the Michigan players like it was some sort of gang riot. These are football players swinging on each other, and they went to pepper spray to mitigate the situation. This was insane. I mean, come on. You got to be kidding me.
Yeah, no, definitely an overreaction and over the top. I mean, now, granted to him, he I didn't get a great look, but he looked like a slightly older fella. Hey, look, I get it. If I'm an older guy and I'm getting the caught, in the middle,
get out the way.
Right?
You will get your ass beaten there because those dudes were seeing red. Those players were, obviously.
Oh yeah. And usually it's not the littles that are in there. Usually it's the bigs, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
It's the bigs, it's the big combo guys that are out for blood. So
I know you're a leader, and I would say I was a leader-ish as well. But you and we're sitting off to the side on that one.
Yeah, and
yeah, I'm not involved in that.
Yeah, that one's gonna be tough. I just punching someone with a helmet on, to me, is the dumbest thing. If you ever go in with a closed fist to punch someone in the helmet,
break your hand.
You're an idiot.
It's stupid.
You're an idiot. I mean, the dumbest thing ever. And one, I'm not going into an altercation without my helmet on, strapped up.
100%.
That is the second dumbest thing you can do is to go into a football fight without your helmet on. There's a reason, like, it's required to play the game. It is for your protection and for your benefit. Don't go fight someone without your helmet on who has their helmet on. I mean, that's just dumb. So that I just had to get that off my chest. I've seen it happen over and over again, and every time I sit there with my arms crossed, like, you're an idiot, and you deserve to get knocked out right now.
Okay, so have you ever been a part of those types of skirmishes, altercations? I'm talking about teams at Georgia.
Happens in camp all the time.
It happens in camp all the time, of course, but what about against an opponent? I remember, I want to say 2009, maybe 2010. It happens every year. Georgia plays Georgia Tech. You kind of meet at midfield. Guys start barking at each other. It's almost like just for show at that point. Nobody's going to swing on each other because you got a football game to play. But post-game like that, dude, that was wild. Again, we played it on our YouTube channel. You can find it on social media anywhere. They are swinging, throwing people to the ground, full-on fight. And again, it all stems from Michigan trying to plant the flag on the artificial turf, which, again, doesn't work. But they wanted to do it. There was another clip that was going viral as well, Jake. Jack Sawyer, 4-year Letterman, senior Ohio State team captain, freaking out. 0-4. He's so pissed. They can't do that. Don't let them do that. Ryan Day sitting there like, what's going on? Horrible meltdown by Ohio State. Horrible meltdown by Ohio State. Ryan Day has no answers. They're getting ready to go to the college football playoff now. They will not be in the Big Ten championship because Penn State takes care of business, beats Maryland. They're going to play Oregon in Indianapolis. So Ohio State will be watching at home. But the Buckeyes are in a catch-22 because half the fan base wants to fire Ryan Day, but they still have a chance to win the national championship.
Oh, yeah. It's like, hey, we want to fire a head coach, but we're also about to turn around and host a first-round playoff game, which is crazy, right?
Dude. Absolutely.
And the thing is, from what I understand, talking to JT Barrett, my assistant quarterback coach today, like, this is serious. Like, this is a big deal.
Oh shit. Yeah.
This cannot keep happening. Like, they can win the national championship this year. And apparently they don't care. They lost to Michigan.
Yes, dude. Did you not see what Ryan Day's quote was earlier this week? He said, losing to Michigan outside of my dad passing away is one of the worst things that has happened in my life. Like, this dude says it out loud. And you're right. I mean, JT Barrett, a Heisman finalist, I think, all-time great Ohio State quarterback, now an assistant QB's coach with the Detroit Lions. Like, he just said it. We could win the national championship, and there will still be a pit in the stomach of Ohio State fans because they lost to Michigan for the 4th time in a row. Really incredible, considering Michigan's what, 6-6, 7-5.
Yeah, a very, very mediocre football team at best, and cannot throw the football either.
No,
they're completely one-dimensional.
Completely one-dimensional. Okay, we'll come back to that in just a second. South Carolina goes to Clemson, beats Clemson 17-14, 10 fourth quarter points. Lenore Sellers, he had an incredible go-ahead touchdown at the end of the game. Sellers, 16 carries, 166 yards and 2 touchdowns. Again, that's the quarterback for South Carolina. Now the Gamecocks finished the season 9-3. Jake, they've got a lot of top 25 wins. And people are saying this is one of the hottest teams in the nation. They will be wanting to see if they can find their way into the college football playoff.
Yeah. I mean, great comeback fashion. I don't know if there's a hotter team in college football right now. Can't wait to dive into this later of whether or not they deserve a spot. Is it this team? Is it that team? I don't know, but I just know they're one of, if not the hottest team in college football right now.
Yeah.
And they got a great quarterback who's playing great ball right now, and a defense that'll wreak havoc on anybody.
There's so much to be said for a mobile quarterback in the sense of a Lenore Sellers, in the sense of a Haynes King, in the sense of a Jalen Hurts or Lamar Jackson or even a Josh Allen up in Buffalo. Like guys who can just pull it down and get 8, 10, 12 yards to move the chains, extend drives, not put the ball in trouble. It really shows later on in the season. I mean, Sellers took over that game. Jake, a quarterback had 166 rushing yards. That is insane. You get one extra blocker, like good luck stopping it. Clemson, they were down in the dumps. They lose the Palmetto Bowl. But then Miami loses to Syracuse, so Clemson gets into the ACC championship game against SMU. They win. They're in the college football playoff. That is just how crazy it was on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine if you're Clemson for a second. I mean, just a devastating loss at the last minute, the last seconds, and still everything you wanted to accomplish at the beginning of your season is still right there in front of you. You just have to win the next game. And we're talking about recently added to the ACC and SMU. I'm not saying they're not a good football team, but I'm just saying, like, this is a very winnable game, and they're in the dance. And not only are they in the dance, but they have a first-round bye in the dance. So it's right there for the taking. Dabo is just a great leader and a great motivator. I told you at the beginning of the year after they got rocked by Georgia.
Tape. Yes.
I said, hey, don't count this Clemson team out. They got some good parts. The quarterback will get it figured out. And here they are. And they're about to make the college football playoff.
Truly unbelievable. Penn State, as I mentioned, took care of business against Maryland. Notre Dame beat USC, so the Fighting Irish have pretty much locked up a college football playoff spot. Tennessee down 17-0 out of the gates against Vanderbilt, Jake. They come back. They end up putting away the Commodores 36-23. Sorry, it was 14-0 and then 17-7 at one point. In the game of the night, Texas A&M, Texas. Wow, that atmosphere really did look absolutely insane. Texas takes care of business, holds on 17-7. A&M could not get anything going on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, that was – I'm kind of speaking out of both sides of my mouth because Marcel Reed, he's definitely mobile, but he couldn't do anything last night.
Yeah, what was frustrating, I mean, just watching A&M's first 2 drives in that football game where it looked like they had some good plays, things schemed up, stuff happened.
They go down
and they got no points out of it.
What?
No points.
No chance. Analytics is telling you don't kick a field goal in the first damn quarter. That's the dumbest thing ever.
And then Coach, when you know the game ends it's at 17-7 and it's a low-scoring game, you're like, man, I could at least give myself a chance. So I don't know. That's a tough one. I mean, the game really wasn't that exciting, honestly.
No, God, it's boring as hell.
it really wasn't a whole lot going on. Quinn Ewers could have ran for an 80-yard touchdown, but he had a hurt ankle and just walked out of bounds on a play. So I don't know. I think it's going to be a great matchup in Georgia, Texas. I think it's going to be completely different. Yeah, it's going to be completely different than the first game. These teams have changed a little bit. Texas is more battle tested. And we just don't know which Georgia team's going to show up, to be quite honest with you.
No, we don't. I mean, who could know what Georgia team is going to show up? It's just, it is really, you don't know. Look, if they turn the ball over, it's going to be very tough for Georgia. If they get off to a slow start, especially against a team like Texas, or it could be the team that beat Texas handily in October on the road. So we didn't touch on the Iron Bowl, but we are about to talk about Alabama here in just a second as we take a look at the All-State playoff predictor. Alabama wins the Iron Bowl 28-14. Auburn tried to maybe make it a little bit interesting, but they really couldn't. Alabama too much. Jalen Milroe, was it 4 interceptions or 4 fumbles? I mean, he could not stop. Oh, yeah, he could not stop turning the ball over. Alabama had 4 turnovers yesterday against Auburn. Milroe finished with 17 carries, 104 yards, and 3 rushing touchdowns, 256 yards passing, and 1 interception. So Bama wins. As we said last week, they're sitting at 13, just waiting for chaos to break out. So with that being said, Jake, let's talk about the All-State playoff predictor, because as it stands right now, before conference championship weekend is here, there are 6 teams that look to be locks. Again, this is from ESPN.com, All-State playoff predictor. Notre Dame, greater than 99% chance. Oregon, greater than 99% chance. Texas, greater than 99% chance. Penn State, greater than 99% chance. Behind them, Georgia, 99%. Indiana, 99%. Tennessee, 98%. Ohio State 96%. Yep. So that looks like your 8 teams that are pretty much a lock to make the college football playoff at the moment.
So that's 8. Okay. Yes. And then Arizona State, Iowa State.
So one of them is going to be a conference champ, right? Obviously. Yep. Notre Dame's going to take their spot.
Then you got SMU versus Clemson. Yep. Okay, so one of those winners, that's 10. Correct. Boise State versus UNLV. That's 11. One of those teams has to get
5, highest ranked group of 5 team. Yep.
So we're talking about one spot. Yeah. Who is on the outside looking in? I think it's
Alabama right now, per the playoff predictor, 30% chance. South Carolina, 21% chance, and Ole Miss a 3% chance.
Really, man, that is, and that's always been the issue with college football. It's just kind of the timing of your losses, and it still bewilders me because Alabama just got shelled by Oklahoma. One of the most embarrassing losses,
24-3
in Alabama history. Didn't score a touchdown to a team who just got to the SEC and they already have a win over Alabama. I mean, to me,
they're having a horrible season. Yeah, Oklahoma's having a horrible season.
Embarrassing. And I can't wait for you to dive into the thing that Lane Kiffin tweeted.
Yes.
To me, it's you could throw Miami in this mix. I don't think they really have a leg to stand on just because their schedule has been of just what it is. Now that they don't make the schedule, I mean, you can make the same argument for Texas.
Right?
You know, Texas just got the SEC and they're going the SEC championship in their first year. Well, they also didn't play these teams. They didn't play Alabama, Ole Miss, South Carolina. Now they played Georgia and they got shelled by Georgia. But there's a lot of Tennessee. They didn't play a lot of teams here in the SEC that really make the SEC. So, you know, that's a different road we can go down. I think of all the teams, especially because of what Kiffin tweeted, and I'd love for you to dive in on it. I think it's Ole Miss, man. I do.
You think it's Ole Miss? You think Ole Miss is the most deserving to get in to the college football playoff as the at-large team? Spencer, let's go ahead and pull it up if you do have it. Lane Kiffin posted this on X today. He tagged the college football playoff in classic Lane Kiffin fashion. And somebody obviously got this over to him. He read it. And, of course, he agreed with it. Bear with me. I'm going to read it verbatim, but it is pretty damning evidence as to what Jake Fromm just said. Ole Miss should get in. After all the chaos yesterday, there looks to be 3 bubble teams fighting for the last remaining playoff spot. All 3 teams are 9-3 and represent the SEC: Ole Miss, Alabama, and South Carolina. South Carolina lost to both of them, and their best win is against Clemson. Ole Miss and Alabama's best win is both against Georgia. Georgia beat Clemson 34-3. It's safe to say that South Carolina is out, and it's between Ole Miss and Alabama. Ole Miss has 9 wins, outscoring their opponents by 296 points. Alabama has 9 wins. They outscored their opponents by 252 points. In the 3 losses, Ole Miss was outscored by a cumulative 13 points. They lost close games. In the 3 losses Alabama had, the Crimson Tide were outscored by a cumulative 33 points. Here are the common opponents between Ole Miss and Alabama. Both of them beat Georgia. Ole Miss beat Georgia by 18. Alabama only beat Georgia by 7. Both teams beat South Carolina. Ole Miss beat South Carolina by 24. Alabama
on the road.
South Carolina by 2. Alabama beat LSU by 29. Yes, Ole Miss lost to LSU by 3 in overtime. However, Ole Miss beat Oklahoma by 12. Alabama lost to Oklahoma by 21. Clearly, Ole Miss should be in the playoff over Alabama, but Bama is the bigger brand and more than likely will get in over Ole Miss.
That math just makes sense to me. Like,
I mean, that makes all the opponents. Yeah, that's outscoring your opponents. That's better losses. That's transitive properties. Wow.
We're judging really wins and we're judging losses.
Yeah.
Now I will say, because of what I've said earlier, and I believe it, like South Carolina is the hottest team out of those 3, and I think would put up probably be the best fight. But it's not who has the hot hand here late. It's who has had the best and most deserving season up until this point. And you can't say by this math and clearly some other math, why would it not be Ole Miss? And
I mean, this lays it out to you as crystal clear as possible, at least that Ole Miss has a better resume compared to Alabama. And essentially, they're just saying that since Georgia beat Clemson by 31 points, then South Carolina's out. Because South Carolina lost to both Ole Miss and Alabama. But if I play devil's advocate,
tell me,
I would say, okay, what do you value more? Do you value more Alabama beating South Carolina by 2 back in September? Or do you value, when you turn the tape on, you do not want to play South Carolina right now? Lenora Sellers is running for 168. Kennard and Stewart are ripping people's heads off at the DM position. Like, they are playing very, very good football right now. So what is it about? Is it about judging people based on their overall resumes? Or are we turning the tape on and saying, who's the best team right now?
Yeah.
That's the tough part.
That is, because you would say, I think in my heart,
definitely playing better football than Alabama and Ole Miss right now.
Right now, I agree.
Yeah.
But to me, it's a dangerous, slippery slope when we start saying right now versus what we've done the entire season.
100%.
I think Ole Miss beat South Carolina by 24 on the road.
Yes.
In South Carolina. Like, to me, that is a huge deal.
Yeah, you can't dismiss that based on recent performance.
Right. You can't dismiss that. And then I kind of keep coming back to, hey, if whatever that whole thing, the late roughing the passer deal, South Carolina versus LSU, South Carolina is sitting with 2 losses instead of 3, and then we're at no question.
Yeah.
It's tough ball, Coach.
It is tough. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. Of course, we will have no idea what is said in the College Football Playoff Committee meetings. Those rankings come out Tuesday afternoon. We, of course, will recap all of that on Thursday's episode. The Detroit Lions play again on Thursday. They play the Green Bay Packers. That is a very, very big-time football game, as the Lions are 11-1. Is that right? 10-1, 11-1?
Sounds good
you
to
guys?
me.
Yeah, and the
Something to
Packers are
one.
9-2. I mean, the Packers are playing some really good 9-3, I believe.
Yeah.
So really good football game coming up on Thursday. So we'll get a podcast ready to roll. We'll post it Thursday morning to get you ready for a conference championship weekend. Of course, we got some really good games coming up. The SEC championship features Georgia and Texas. That game is in Atlanta. The Big Ten championship features Oregon and Penn State. ACC championship, Clemson and SMU. Big 12 championship, Iowa State versus Arizona State. I think that's it. Oh, the group of 5, Mountain West is going to be a good one too. UNLV against Boise State. So lots of good football left, Coach. You know it's going to be crazy this weekend too. It's just the way it always is.
Yeah, if you thought it was crazy, wild, college football was exciting up until this point, it's about to get electric. I mean, I think this 12-team playoff is awesome. It's going to be super fun, and I think a lot like the basketball tournament is really going to be dependent upon kind of where you land in the bracket, who you play, and what your path is to get there. And I think it's going to make a huge factor how this all plays out.
2 things. One, it's just such a joke Notre Dame's not in a conference. It's such a joke Notre Dame's not in a conference. They're chilling at home this weekend. They punched their ticket. I mean, a tough game against Southern Cal out in sunny L.A. Give me a break. Get into a conference. They should not have the luxury, because they don't want to be in a conference. They should not have the luxury to just sit at home conference championship weekend, catch a nice little bye, and get ready to roll for the college football playoff. On the flip side, another thing that's certifiably insane is that Georgia theoretically could have to play 5 more football games. If they were to lose a close one in the SEC championship, they're playing in the first round. That's 2 games. Then it's the quarterfinal. That's 3. Then it's the semifinal. That's 4. National championship will be 5 games. That's wild. That's wild. It's the NFL now, Coach. It is the NFL now.
Man, that's a lot of games.
Wow. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Well, did you have a good Thanksgiving? I saw it was snowing up there.
Dude, cool. Man, snowing. Woke up the day after Thanksgiving, snow on the ground everywhere. So on Thanksgiving Day, obviously we played, came back, ate like a little steak and baked potato on Thanksgiving Day. So that way I could smoke a turkey on Friday, pretend it was like a real Thanksgiving Day. Caroline was in the kitchen whipping it up, sweet potato souffle, homemade mac and cheese.
Yeah,
man, it was great. And then we took our son Luke out yesterday, who's 8 months old now, and we chopped down a Christmas tree. 20 degrees outside, snowing.
Chop it down.
Oh yeah, the whole 9, dude. Awesome. I had an 8-foot Fraser fir on my back, 500 yards, man. Let me tell you, I got mine in yesterday. Let me tell you.
Good for you. Good for you. Well, happy Thanksgiving. Holidays are here. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Be sure to follow us on social media. We're at Punt and Pass on X and Instagram. I'm at Drew Butler. He's at From Jake, puntandpass.com. And with the holiday seasons here, you've got to check out Solomon Brothers Jewelers, the #1 and really only jewelry store that you need to go to and trust if you're in the Atlanta area. 3 amazing locations you can choose from. The OG, of course, 17th floor Tower Place in Buckhead. There's one up here by me, Alpharetta, just past the Avalon, on a brand new location down south of the city in Sharpsburg. If you're in store, and you want to be in store because it's absolutely incredible, the staff's perfect, the selection is top tier, tell them Punt and Pass sent you. You can get up to 20% off your jewelry purchase. Tell them Punt and Pass sent you. You can get up to 20% off your jewelry purchase. And keep it locked in on social media, because Jaren's sending over some fun stuff that we will be able to provide for you this holiday season. So that'll do it for us. Check them out at Solomon Brothers on X and Instagram, solomonbrothers.com. Have an awesome start to your week. It's conference championship week, and we will talk to you on Thursday. See ya.
We out.